Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video and another collab with a great Chelsea guest. A returning guest for the third time this season, Dan McCarthy, back on the channel. Dan is a great guy. He's a great guest to have because him and Simon Phillips, I'm sure many of you know, run their own site covering Chelsea news, transfer news, some really good inside information that I cover on the channel a lot of the time. And also Dan has a coaching background and playing professionally background too. So it's great to delve into the tactical side of the game with him. This is going to be a two-part discussion. The first part today is covering transfers, looking ahead into the transfer market, looking at those big targets we've discussed on the channel, Lukaku, Declan Rice, Jadon, Sancho, the futures of current Chelsea players, Jorginho, Zouma and Callum Hudson-Oodi. And then the second part of our conversation that I'll upload on Wednesday is a tactical preview for the Champions League final, Chelsea versus Man City, Pep Guardiola versus Thomas Tuchel once again. So hope you enjoy. Hit that like button if you do. And as well, just to cover my giveaway that I was talking about last week, the giveaway for the Lucid FC Son of Chelsea shirt that we're giving away next week. So make sure in the comments below you get down there, like this video, make sure you're subscribed to Son of Chelsea to enter the giveaway to win this shirt. As you can see on screen now, you have to subscribe, like and comment. You can comment up to 5 times and you must be subscribed to the channel as well. So to win this brilliant shirt that I know many of you guys have been excited by in the comments, make sure to get involved. Going to keep on hyping the giveaway this week because you guys can get involved and potentially win the shirt. But hope you enjoyed the discussion with Dan. Let's get to part 1 right now. So Dan, thank you so much for joining me, mate. Third time we've just had you on the channel this season, and it's bizarre because it's like so much changes at Chelsea so quickly. I remember our first discussion way back in October. Frank was still here. The second discussion we had, Tuchel had just arrived, and now here we are. The Premier League season has just finished and Chelsea are in a Champions League final. How have you found this long season as a Chelsea fan and just experiencing it? Because it has felt like a very long one, at least in my personal opinion.
Yeah, like we were saying off there, Dan, it has been a long season. With everything happening with coronavirus, of course. And I feel like with Chelsea, being a Chelsea fan, there's that extra 10% of just mentalness. There's no other way to really say it. So yeah, I'm somewhat glad it's over, the Premier League. I'm glad we've got the top 4, very unconventionally, of course. But yeah, I'm just glad that's over. That season's done. It was just so much emotion with Frank coming and going and Tuchel coming in, and so much change, as you said. So yeah, really happy that's over, but very, very excited for the Champions League final. And I've got a few opinions on that Champions League final, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But yeah, no, it's been a crazy season. But look, I think we could be happy with it in general. I know that will obviously give or take more or less how the Champions League final goes, of course. But I think overall we could be happy with the season thus far.
About sort of the Premier League, because obviously that finished when we were recording this yesterday against Aston Villa. I mean, Chelsea tried their best to bottle the situation, and very weirdly, Spurs decided to Gareth Bale us out. How do you feel about it? Because I think the Premier League, I was having this conversation with Jay on our pod earlier, and I think it's a hard one to analyse because, sure, the turbulence of a new manager coming in halfway through the season, you have to allow for that turbulence and that change. But to think we've only gained 1 point on last season with the investment we've had, I mean, would you have believed that last summer if I told you that with all the money we spent, we'd only be 1 point better?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, and I saw that tweet actually, Dan. I did see it, and I also saw. I think I took the time. I don't know if it was linked or not. I took the time to have a look at. I don't know if it was your platform that did this, Dan, or someone else. But they did like a lot of account got a lot of big accounts to do projections before the season, right? And I remember reading a few, and I saw a few first, and I was like, "There's no way seconds and first." And I actually, if I was going back in time, I know it's easy to say now, but I would have said third or fourth again. And the reason being is, yeah, we made huge investments, we made some great signings, but players coming from the Bundesliga always take time. They always have. History tells you that. And we didn't just buy one, right? We bought so many, which makes it even tougher. So, yeah, I would have said that we would have been somewhere around the same, obviously preempting, not COVID and everything, but yeah, I would have said we were around the same kind of way. If you look at it like that, I guess you can be disappointed, right? And you could be like, could have done better. But I think when you take everything into account and two completely different systems with Lampard and Tuchel, and of course, everything that happened and there's all the signings. Yeah, I'm not that. I'll be honest, Daniel. I'm not trying to sound smart. I'm just not that surprised, to be honest.
I mean, in my preseason predictions, I had us at third, but I remember saying that I had us at third where we were a lot closer to the eventual champions. So I was I'd take a third, but closer, I think, to the champions. So I think it's more the points. I don't think it's the positioning. I mean, it feels very similar to recent seasons. I mean, this has been Chelsea's sort of standard in the Premier League for a number of years, trying to qualify for the Champions League. And I remember in our first conversation, we spoke about the importance of pre-season and the lack of a pre-season last year. I guess this leads on to my sort of next question on looking forward to next season, as I'm sure many people will already be doing, despite the fact we've got a Champions League final. Pre-season, I think, is going to be such a blessing that I think we didn't have last year. Frank didn't have, and maybe contributed to the problems he eventually found. How do you think that's going to impact Tuchel? Because I know on your podcast with Simon Phillips, there's been this talk about maybe a new formation, some new transfers coming in. Pre-season, I think, it is something that hopefully will give us the right platform and time that we didn't have last season.
Yeah, just to lead on to your point about the third and the closer points, I think that's something that is fair that you would want that, and we all want that, right? And what is it, 12 points we finished behind City? I don't actually remember. I would say that's more the fans. I think we saw some really mental fixtures and points and results this year because of the fans. I think if there were fans in the ground, I think a lot of them results wouldn't have happened or would have been very different. So in terms of pre-season, yeah, huge. It's going to be so huge because the rumours are now circulating that Tuchel will go to a back four next year and his recruitment will mirror that. And if that is the case, then I think the DM becomes a big player now with that. So if that's the case, and I do think Tuchel will keep that in the back pocket, the three at the back. I think he'll keep that in the back pocket for sure because he's done so well with it, right? And the squad still suits that. So I think he'll keep that. But in terms of if he can get two or three of his own players, I think the back four really comes into play. And then pre-season is as we've talked about, Dan, it's just massive. And I know a lot of people don't get it, but I think when you've played the game or coached the game, you know, and you've been in pre-season, you know how important that is for obviously tactics and walkthroughs and shape will be predominant in there. And obviously match fitness is huge. I think Chelsea's squad and playing style requires a high fitness level like a Liverpool's does as well. And I also think that, if he's going to make two or three signs, he's got to get them in, right? And he's got to accustom them to the game. So, pre-season is going to be massive. And I think it will serve a coach like Tuchel better than most because he's so tactical and he's so reliant on those tactics that they have to be spot on for his teams to do well. And I think the more time on the training ground, the better.
From a coaching perspective, do you think pre-season, the good thing about pre-season is you can work on certain game scenarios, whether that be a set piece or going 1-0 down or whatever it is? And I know Tuchel, reading a lot about him, he's a bit like Pep, isn't he? He's so forensic about the game. He works so tirelessly on managing space, managing moments in games, like really trying to figure out all the possibilities that maybe he hasn't been able to implement the time needed to work on those things. Is that another part rather than just the fitness that you can sort of because Frank had one pre-season without the full squad and you're into the season and suddenly those scenarios that Frank would have wanted to be having a pre-season with aren't there. It's into intense competition straight away. Yeah,
huge. And Tuchel hasn't had the opportunity, right, to do the scenarios of, all right, when it's 0-0 with 20 to go, what's our scenario there? We're 1-0 down or, we're 1-0 up and we're trying to close the game out. He's the reason we've got the results we have and the reason we've probably struggled in areas is because there's no tactical foundation to lay on. There's no scenario base to lay on because he hasn't had the time to do it. He's just purely laid out the tactic and gone, okay, fit into this tactic and shape. And then as professionals, manage a scenario as you can. But there's no go-to. There's no foundation of, okay, we know what we're doing here because he hasn't had the time to do it. He had barely any time to figure out what his best 11 is. And I don't think he still has figured that out. So, because, Christian Pulisic's unbelievable one day and he's not great the next. So, and obviously he has the constant battle in his head with Timo Werner. So, no, I think pre-season will be huge for that scenario-based games where there's a reluctance to change and there's a panic. There's complete panic, right, in moments. So I didn't actually see that. I'll be honest, Daniel, I didn't see the Aston Villa game yesterday and I still haven't seen it because I want to sit down and watch the whole game because I was coaching myself. But from what I read and saw, it looked like a mess. it looked like an absolute mess. And that is because there's no foundation from pre-season, from spending time on the training field together to go to. So yeah, I think we've just seen good players fit in a good system, and they've kind of figured it out for the most part. But there's definitely been areas, right, we've all seen where that needs to be better for this quality of player and quality of coach, and that will come in pre-season.
So sort of looking into next season and just maybe the inside sources you've got, or just looking at the current squad, do you think there are any players that Tuchel has regularly used? I'm not talking about ones that he hasn't played, like Tammy, that you think may not be that important for him next season when he gets the transfers in the summer?
The first person that pops up, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised when I say this, is Jorginho, right? I think that's definitely a talking point. I think it's a tough question to ask because I think Tuchel likes Jorginho and he rates him. But I think if you gave Tuchel the option to get someone in ahead of him, he would. But how easy is that to do? How possible is that to do? We're not sure. The left-back situation is going to change, I'm sure. I know he's, similar to Jorginho, Alonso, he does a job right, but he will never be his first choice. Emerson will want to go and play. I do believe that we'll see Kurt Zouma leave. I can see that. And that's more actually of I've been told a couple of things, but I've not been told concrete Kurt Zouma's leaving. That's more of my personal hunch and my personal kind of putting two and two together in my head. I could definitely see him leaving. I just heard that Tuchel, obviously likes the power and the physical presence of Zouma, but Tuchel likes his teams to play right, and his centre-backs are fundamental to swinging the ball around. That's why Thiago Silva is so celebrated. And I don't think Zouma has that same caressment, should we say, or quality, technical ability as him. So I could definitely see Zouma leaving. And in terms of Jorginho, yes, I've always maintained Jorginho won't be a long-term stay at Chelsea. And that's not because I don't like him. I actually rate him and I see what he brings to the team. I just don't see it being a long-term fit. So I do think if Tuchel can get his target in DM, then we could see Jorginho moved on. I know he loves Kovacic. Obviously, Conte, we've seen. Billy Gilmore will eventually get there, I'm sure. I think he'll go on a Premier League loan, maybe. So, yeah, I think the obvious for sure, Daniel. And then obviously you look at Giroud and Tammy, as you said.
Just on Tammy, because you wrote about it weeks ago, and I believe you wrote the piece around Tammy even pre-Man City, the semi-final where he was left out. I mean, that was, up in that point, we knew that Tuchel didn't fancy Tammy, but that was a big moment because Tammy had scored quite a few goals in the FA Cup for us to get us to that position. He even scored the winner against Barnsley in the fifth round, I think it was. And considering the big squads you have, considering when you have 5 stars, I mean, I have to say that I think for all Tuchel's done well at Chelsea, I think he's done 99% of things well. I think the treatment of Tammy is something you can be critical of. It's been confusing more than anything, like having Emerson on the bench when Tuchel quite clearly doesn't need him. The striking problems we've had all season. I just wonder from Tammy's point of view, and just looking forward, I mean, it's quite clear he's going to leave. It's quite clear that Tuchel doesn't fancy him. It's a risk, though, isn't it? Because if we don't get a striker and we let Tammy walk out the door and these attacking problems persist, it's going to look quite bad next season, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. And I think I do have slight sympathy with Tuchel because he's come into, obviously, a situation and it's okay for him not to rate players. Like every coach and manager, it's okay. Sorry about that. But it's okay not to rate players. And he clearly doesn't rate Tammy for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter what we think. He's the manager, right? So I do have a little bit of sympathy because if he doesn't rate him, he shouldn't have to choose him. Whether it's right or wrong, he doesn't have to put him in the squad and doesn't have to choose him. However, I do think there's been moments where, has it been, I don't want to say malicious because I don't think it is malicious, but you understand, I think it could have been avoided. I think it could have been avoided. I think we could have just put him in the squad to put him in the squad, or he could have had more opportunities. I definitely think it's not, this is not a 19-year-old kid who hasn't proven anything, and it's also not a 34-year-old man who's at the end of his career. This is a guy who's, entering not the peak of his career, but pre-peak of his career. He's proven he can score goals at this level. I don't think and I've always maintained this, I don't think he's the man to lead Chelsea to Premier League and Champions League glory. I don't. But that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve an opportunity, especially coming from the academy. So I do sympathise a little bit with Tuchel because at the end of the day, he doesn't have to pick anybody, and it is a big squad, and he's got options, and he's definitely got pressure to play Werner and Havertz. There's no doubt about that. But however, I do agree with you, Daniel, in the respect of it could have been handled a bit better. I think he could have played the political game a little bit better, Tuchel. I think sometimes he's too honest and too transparent, which I don't mind. I think I actually like that about managers. I think a lot of people have celebrated that about Thomas Tuchel, but you got to realise how the media are these days. You got to realise what the game's like these days. He could have probably played the game a little bit better. And yeah, it's going to be a shame when Tammy leaves because obviously Cobham and he's done well. He's had great moments with Chelsea. It was really good to see him score. A good heartfelt moment. But in the grand scheme of things and looking at the overall picture, Daniel, I would say that it's the right move for Tammy and everybody because I don't see him being the guy to lead Chelsea, but he's way too good to sit on our bench.
Yeah, I'm not really at a point where I'm desperate for him to stay. For months now I've said if I was advising him and he asked me for some reason, what should I do? I'd tell him, mate, go somewhere where you're going to get goals. I guess maybe Tammy's departure could lead into a potential transfer, as Matt Law has been reporting in recent days surrounding Declan Rice. I guess we should start with Rice because, for months I was concerned that player just, we felt that transfer was off the table since Lampard's departure. But Matt Law wrote about it, and I think you've said that we've always rated Rice. It was just a case of maybe the valuation that West Ham want for him or something else to do with whatever the scouting staff at Chelsea think about him. I think it's a positive that he's back in the conversation because I do think he is the perfect signing. What do you think about Rice and sort of your feeling going into this summer? Because, I love the guy, but 90 million is quite ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, 90 million is ridiculous. I don't think it would be 90 million to get him, but I do think it'll be a lot of money for sure. How am I feeling about Rice? Again, I think everybody knows I rate him and obviously, and I've always liked him as a player and a leader, and I definitely want him to play for Chelsea Football Club. There's no doubt about that. In terms of the behind the scenes stuff, yeah, I think, hot take. I was supposed to be doing a video on this today, which I need to record, but hot take would be that West Ham have just qualified for Europe now, and I think if anything that aids him in staying at West Ham for another year. Unless, I know there's been interest, there's been rumours, right, of Manchester United are interested, Man City would be interested, even though I don't think Man City will go for that now. So unless one of them put in a big bid and then Chelsea go, we had the potential, which is Chelsea. That is very Chelsea thing to do. Chelsea have had players on their list, right? And then another club has come in to buy them and they've gone, we should go buy him now. And then they've done it. Willian, Michy Batshuayi. It's happened so many, John Obi Mikel. It's happened. So I could definitely see that scenario because, Chelsea do rate him. Chelsea have always rated him. I know there's been discrepancies on the price and obviously Lampard, part of his firing apparently, right, was him going on about Rice too much, which is kind of cliche. But I definitely see that scenario happening, that Chelsea are still interested. Chelsea still like the player. And if they could do a deal that is financially adequate for them, they would do it. 100% they would because they love the player and they rate him. And it's an easy deal to do in the respect of Declan wants to come and he'll fit in immediately and he'll be a big player immediately. And Thomas Tuchel rates him. However, West Ham will demand some serious money. And now they've made Europe, it only gives them more power, right? And there's a potential. Do they offer him a new contract and merit him with that for leading them into Europe? So it becomes tougher. But I wouldn't say it's over. But I do see it unlikely this summer unless one of the other teams puts in a massive bid and Chelsea go, we got to get him.
Do you think Tchouaméni could be a potential backup option? Because I've heard his name spoken about for months regarding Chelsea.
Yeah, Tchouaméni is someone I'm not overly familiar with. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've watched him that much. I did a stream with Hajir and a couple of others a few days ago, and I called him a Pokemon because I just didn't know how to say his name and it sounded like a Pokemon. So that was kind of tongue in cheek. So from what I've heard of seen, he's doing great, right? I believe he got into the Liga 1 Team of the Year, which is brilliant. As a Monaco player, that's not easy, right? Because that's definitely a popularity contest, like they all are, and PSG dominate that, even though they didn't win the league. So that's obviously great. I know Cesc Fabregas has spoken about him, and that's obviously a great stamp of approval from a man of his caliber. So, and I know a lot of people away from, on Chelsea football Twitter and stuff like that have all said that he's a good player and he's great. Simon's more on top of this one than I am. I don't know if you and Jay are similar, but sometimes I'll follow a certain saga or a certain player and he will. So he's definitely more educated on this than I am. But from what he's told me, he says that Chelsea are seriously considering it because he is a cut price alternative to Declan Rice. He'll still cost a good sum, but not a Declan Rice money. And Tuchel likes him. I kind of said, yeah, I like him. We can keep an eye on him. And Chelsea have been doing a lot of scouting in France. I know we both know that for sure. They've been looking at a lot of players from France. So it makes sense. How far along it is, not sure. I think it's just really extensive scouting at this point. And I don't think any bids, I know no bids going in yet. It's way too early for that. But he's definitely an option, and he's definitely a serious option going forward for sure.
Defensive midfield is probably the second biggest thing for me. This arguably in some ways the first biggest thing. I mean, at times, I think other than that, of course, striker. And I wanted to ask you about Lukaku because you've been very adamant, as I have been also on my channel, about saying I just can't see Harry Kane happening. I mean, it's something ridiculous would have to happen. Daniel Levy would have to wake up on the right side of the bed and decide I'm suddenly doing business with Chelsea. As people pointed out, Luka Modric back in 2011, Modric has told the story that he was on Roman's yacht, and was having conversations with him. But of course, it was all down to Levy, wasn't it? So that's not going to happen. And in that, basically, in terms of like elite strikers that you put out there that we've been linked with, it's Haaland or Lukaku. Dortmund now have Champions League football. That's very different, and a bit like West Ham, it improves their situation. Yeah. You spoke about Lukaku. I spoke about it on my channel last week. He is my first choice option. I mean, if there was, I don't think you could get a safer bet in terms of a striker who's in the prime of their career, banging in goals. We've seen him score goals in the Premier League before. What do you think about Lukaku? I know there's a lot of stuff in here in terms of into getting new investment, Conte, and how much it would cost Chelsea. But for me, if once again, if we don't sign Lukaku, I think any hope of us improving on our Premier League position, I think would be silly.
I like Lukaku. I think he's a great player. I think he's often misunderstood. Very misunderstood. I think he's often underrated in terms of his ability to just do everything. I think a lot of people have written off his Premier League career for not much reason. He banged in goals at West Brom, Everton. He was decent at Man United. Man United will just go through a horrific transitional stage, but he still scored, and I'm a big fan. If I could pick any of the three, I'd go Harry Kane, but that's not happening. And my second choice would be Lukaku, because of the fact that prime of his career, he's still, I know people say 27 compared to Haaland's 20, whatever he is. Yeah, but 27 is still a long time. That's still 5-6 years. And Lukaku, for the way he plays, him with Werner or Havertz or both around him, sounds pretty ridiculous to be honest.
Reece James knocking in crosses for him as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Look, Dan, I'm with you, buddy. I'm a big Lukaku fan. I've always rated him. I've always wanted to see him come back. It is a very complex situation. Obviously, I wrote an article on it, as you know, and I know you spoke on it as well. It is complex because him and Conte have a very, very good relationship. They are a match made in heaven, just like a lot of managers and players have been. And there's loyalty there, but Conte is a very volatile character, right? And he will only stay if he is given them assurance. And we know he's not bluffing. He will go if he has to. I do think he'll end up staying. I do think Inter will find a way. Obviously, that investment from Oak Hill helps. It doesn't change everything, though, because if you read the details of it, it's a loan. It's got to be paid back in a certain amount of time. There's interest. There's all kind of financial hurdles there. So it doesn't change everything, but it helps. But yeah, if Conte stays, then Lukaku would happily stay at Inter. He's happy there. He's won the league. He likes Italy. He likes the coach, obviously. But if Chelsea pursue it aggressively and they pay up, he would come. He would come to Chelsea. He would love to come back to the Premier League. And he'd love to prove his point at Chelsea. He's a very determined character. I feel like he's got a point to prove, and he knows that. And he loves Chelsea. So yeah, I think it's early days, but if Chelsea are going to get Lukaku, they have to be extremely aggressive in their pursuit of him, just like they were with Havertz and Werner. It's not going to be Lukaku's not going to be banging down the door at Inter saying, "Can I go?" That's not going to happen. He will come if it makes sense, but Chelsea will definitely have to pursue that very aggressively.
I guess that's the positive thing about last summer is those big deals. I mean, Kai was a longer term deal, wasn't it? That they'd been planning for about a year, even before Lampard had came back. I think Sarri was still manager when they started speaking about Kai, and we don't know if there have been things going on behind the scenes, as with transfers that comes out later. I do think that's the thing. I mean, if we want to win the Premier League title, if we want to challenge for it next year, I know you've spoken a lot about Werner and backing Timo, and I absolutely understand that discussion point. But I think that I just think it's so clear at this point. This team needs a ruthless finisher. We create enough chances. Mason's only behind Fernandes in created chances in the Premier League this season. We know Kai can create chances. We know Ziyech can create chances. Of course, Reece. So I think if we don't sign Lukaku and we let Tammy Abraham go, I think we could be in a bad situation next season if our striking problems persist. Just one more name that I did want to bring up, Jadon Sancho, a bit of a left field one for me because, I mean, how many more wide players do we need? That's the first question. I'm not saying that Sancho, of course, is an excellent player, but I don't know if I'm wrong here, my assumption would be if we were to sign Sancho, then surely one of the current wide players has to leave. Absolutely.
And that's why it's unlikely, because who do you see leaving? Pulisic won't go. I said that 6 months ago, and everyone, I think a few people shut me down, were like, no, he's unhappy, he's going to go. He's not going anywhere. Ziyech, who's buying him? Who's buying Ziyech at this point? Ajax, will they buy him back? Maybe, but I don't see European giants knocking on the door for Ziyech right now. Not just because he's a great player, but in and out season, finances are tough right now for a lot of clubs. Who's buying him? And then you look at Callum Hudson-Oodi. I don't know if I should even get into that because that is such a volatile topic on Chelsea Twitter. It's insane.
It's a confusing topic as well. I don't know. I get asked about Callum and my opinions on him. And I have to be honest, my opinions on him generally, whether it's his performance, whether it's does he have a future at Chelsea, change month to month. I have to be like, maybe that's me flip-flopping, but I just, from what I see, some games he comes on and he looks amazing. I'm like, this guy has a big future. And then he barely plays. So and we've constantly had the rumours about Bayern that I know you've spoken about before, that he would be the one that I'd probably put at the top of the list that I think's most likely to go in terms of just based on the history of Bayern. But it's a confusing topic, and I understand what you're saying. It's you could spend a lot of time speaking about Callum, and I always find I come back to the conclusion of I don't know what to say about him. It's just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. It's very confusing. And flip-flop is okay, by the way. Football changes all the time. And I know people hold people to words, but things change in football so quickly, right? Like everyone bashing Tuchel, everyone started bashing Tuchel last week. And I was like, you're joking. A month ago, you were calling him the Pharaoh. So it's very flip-floppish, and that's okay as long as it's educated and there's a reason for it, not just emotional nonsense, So Callum's tough. I think a lot of people know my views on Callum. I think there's a player in there. But I do think the Chelsea fan base and probably more football Twitter fan base overrate him and put so much pressure on him. And he's going to be inconsistent because of how young he is. So he could definitely go. But again, are Bayern going to stump that money up, the same money they were going to stump up? Probably not at this point. So yeah, with Sancho, Chelsea like him. Chelsea have always liked him, scouted him for years, always had him on the books. Chelsea fan, apparently, and friends with a lot of the players at the club, loves London. A deal could be done. If Chelsea were like, okay, we want to buy Sancho, a deal could be done. Chelsea have got him up there on the list, but he's not number one. He's not even number two. He's not even number three, probably, on that list. Centre-backs, forwards, centre-mids are definitely ahead of that. The only way I can see us going for Sancho is if the pursuit of a number 9 doesn't go well and Chelsea can highlight one of their wingers to leave. Like, okay, we know we can get rid of someone here if we get Sancho. It's the only way I can see it. But Dan, as you just heard me say, it's a lot of if, buts and maybes, right? It's too many moving pieces. So I don't think it's the right time. And I think Man United might aggressively pursue that and he'll go to United. So I can see that for sure. But yeah, and to your point earlier about the creativity, right? Yeah, we're like Arsenal in a way. Arsenal back in the day, like play good football and we create so many chances in the attacking third, but there's just no one there to finish it. Like Arsenal played some great stuff back in the day, but they've never really had that number 9. Like Lacazette is not that number 9. I know Aubameyang sometimes puts the team on his back, but I'm not comparing us to Arsenal because we're a level above Arsenal. I've always maintained that, but I think you understand the concept I'm trying to say. Without that number 9, we'll struggle next year. I think Timo Werner will have a better year next year. I'm very adamant on that, but should we be risking all of our chips on that? I think Chelsea should be proactive and get someone in rather than waiting for Timo Werner to improve or waiting for Kai Havertz to improve.